All right. Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast for the vikingage.com. I'm your host, Adam Patrick. And as always, I'm joined by my host, Chris Schad. Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that us here at the Viking Age, we are giving away a Justin Jefferson jersey. The giveaway began last week and it ends on May 6th. Terms and conditions apply. And to enter, all you have to do is head to the description of this video and follow the link included for a chance to win a Justin Jefferson jersey. And lastly, make sure you subscribe and like this video. And for those of you that have already done this, we greatly appreciate you. And actually, lastly, happy birthday, Chris. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I have come prepared to the podcast. I got my koozie here with, a
Soda
lot of
pop.
people. Yes, a little soda pop. Yes, but
Cheers.
cheers. Yes.
All right. We'll just get right into it. I was not here on Monday. You talked to Daniel House, and that was a really good episode. Get some good draft insight about not only some Gophers, but other prospects as well in the draft that the Vikings could be interested in. So if you haven't seen that, go back down below on this channel and check out that interview with Daniel House of Gophers Guru. So all right, on today's show, we're gonna go over some of the press conferences from this week. So Vikings players are back in town for OTAs, their first OTA session with the new coaching staff and the new regime in there, some new players in there. But Kirk Cousins, don't know if you heard of this guy. He's quarterback for the Vikings. He met with the local media earlier this week, and he said a bunch of things that were both interesting and non-interesting. But probably the most interesting part of his press conference was when he stated how he would like to retire as a Viking. Now, Cousins, of course, signed a 1-year extension earlier this offseason that will keep him under contract with the Vikings until 2024. He also mentioned how he wanted to help by creating cap space, which the deal did, but not for next year. But all right, so Kirk says he wants to retire as a Viking, but then why did he only sign a 1-year extension if this is the franchise that he wants to retire with? Chris, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, whose decision was it, first of all?
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
the Vikings' decision? Because apparently there were multi-year deals on the table, according to reports. So if there are multi-year deals on the table, that's a Kirk Cousins thing. If it was the Vikings and they just had the 1-year extension on there, then it's a Vikings thing. Kirk has said he wants to retire a Viking before, but
Yeah.
that is under his terms, which is funny. We've heard that a lot, right? The Vikings have said we dictate things under our terms. Well,
Yeah.
Kirk prefers 1-year deals. He loved the franchise tags in Washington, although they are extremely dangerous for your long-term viability in the league. But he plays well enough. He gets his stats. He's pretty successful when you compare to most quarterbacks. So, like, I'd say he's a top 10 quarterback. I mean, lower half of the 10, but
Mhm.
when it comes to Cousins, I think it's just who he is. Like the way he dodged questions about the contract and Kevin O'Connell and Mike Zimmer was never brought up, but like this was a press conference where Kirk should have went in and been like, this is my team. I just signed an extension. We got my guy, Kevin O'Connell here. He's a great coach. We're going to do this. And instead it was the same, yeah, I didn't even choose the coach. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I only gave him a autograph frame jersey, like whatever. But I think he probably does want to. He just doesn't like signing the long-term deals. So I don't know. It's a pain in the neck if the Vikings do really want to keep him around. But yeah, it's an interesting comment, I guess, when you think of it that way.
Yeah, I think he had an interview. I heard an interview with him. It was an old podcast or whatever that he did in like 2019. How he said he wanted to, he wanted to remain with one team his entire career, and that was at first that was Washington. Then he got with the Vikings, and so now he wants to just be a two-team guy. So this is just something that he's used to saying every year. And to me, when I watched that press conference, I feel like okay, he knew he was speaking on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it happened, or even Monday. I don't remember exact day that it was. I think it was Tuesday.
Yes,
No.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday? Okay.
It was Tuesday.
Yeah, so he knew he was speaking, so I'm knowing the way that Cousins is and how he prepares and calculating everything, I'm sure he had some, like wrote some stuff, down and had some talking points that he wanted to make sure he emphasized, and I'm sure underlined and highlighted was, "I want to retire as a Viking." Because you know that's just it's some stuff that he knows people will like to hear. He thinks that's what he's supposed to say. That's going to get the fan base rallying behind him. But when you
He's
sign a
like,
1 year, just when you sign a 1 year extension, like
uh,
what regardless of that's what like the best offer that you got from the Vikings. If you really wanted to retire with the Vikings, wouldn't you be willing to take a longer deal to just make sure that you're going to stick around for more than another 2 seasons.
Kirk is like, if some kid wished a quarterback Ken doll to like it, like how there's like different variations of, I grew up with three sisters, so this is how I know this, but like there's
Mhm,
like three different kinds of Barbies that you can get.
mhm.
Like quarterback Ken, like if they just wished him to life, you would have Kirk Cousins because he always says the, answer that everybody wants to hear. It's like he kind of rehearses everything. Everything's very meticulous, and that's how Kirk lives his life.
That
Everything
he
is very boiled down to an exact science, which is something that I don't think it can be great in the NFL, but as we've seen, when things don't go right, which this is the NFL, that happens a lot, it's kind of does not compute and he short circuits a little bit. So man, it just that whole press conference was just kind of like, okay,
well, because
nah.
wasn't there reports of, like, Cousins was heavily involved in, like, the hiring of Kevin O'Connell and everything, and he was, like, pounding the table for him, and then he was asked about it, and he was like, I had minimal input." And it's like, "What?" That's
Yeah,
that's
we go
one that's
from
not
like
yeah.
my favorite part of this whole thing is like they asked Kirk Cousins, hey, what's it like getting a new coach and everything?
They
And
give
he's
him
like, oh
softballs.
yeah, oh yeah, people's come and go.
Yeah.
We have had 10 different offensive coordinators with Zim. Kevin O'Connell, I've never heard of him. Like it's just a new guy there. Like this isn't a substitute teacher, dude. This is your head coach. This is a head coach that was literally brought in to help you become a Pro Bowl player. No, I'm sorry. He's already a Pro Bowl quarterback, a Super Bowl winning
Yep.
quarterback. But instead, it's just like, nah, I don't know. The guy that I nearly choked out on the sideline during a celebration against the freaking Lions, and now we're replacing him with a guy I gave a jersey to. Like, this is, yeah, it's it's infuriating, and I feel like I'm like kind of nitpicking here as to what he's saying, kind of dissecting it, but everybody has done this. Every beat reporters, everybody. It's just kind of like take control of this team. Hell yeah, I picked Kevin O'Connell. Hell yeah, he's going to take me to like next level. Hell yeah, we're the Vikings. We're going to do this. But nope. Whatever. I might not
Well,
call timeout this year. I might line up under the tackle. I don't know.
I think it's just it's becomes more clear every time he speaks that, we we're expecting him to be the leader and everything of the Vikings, and he isn't. He leads with his play, and that's fine. But like as far as like saying the right things he thinks he's saying the right things, but as far as like the actual right things to say in the media and press conferences, it just comes off as rehearsed and everything, and not genuine. Then you listen to someone speak like Justin Jefferson, who's just like everything seems totally not to say Kirk is lying or anything, but like totally just off the cuff for with Jefferson, not rehearsed, like honest, like he's like, yeah, I've seen the receiver contracts. I know exactly like how much money I can make. Uh so yeah, it's interesting to see those differences in those two players. All right, so just looking ahead though, Kirk Cousins says he wants to retire with the Vikings. What are the actual chances do you think of that happening? He's what, 33, 34, and he's been in the league
34.
for this will be his 11th year. So,
What are the odds of the Vikings winning a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins? Because I'm pretty sure that would do it.
uh low?
Like that's it. If he wins a
You think
Super
he would
Bowl,
you think
yeah,
he
he could
would
stay
you
here as
think he
long
would
as he wants.
retire it?
But
You think he would retire if he won a Super Bowl with the Vikings? Like within the next 2
no, no,
years?
no. I'm saying that if he wins a
He'd
Super
stick
Bowl with the
around.
Vikings, he'd stick around. The Vikings would
Alright.
keep him around. I mean, I think there'd
Mhm.
be a lot of people that would want him around. Like, oh my God, Kevin O'Connell did it. He solved the Rubik's Cube. Let's extend everyone again. I mean, this franchise is probably gonna have Adam Thielen into his 40s. Like, if they like you, they like you. So again, I don't know. Like it's all whose decision was this 1 year contract extension? Was it the Vikings saying, "Hey, we want to extend you to lower the cap number, but we don't want to. We only want to date you. We don't want to marry you." Rather than Kurt going, "Well, there's a 3 year deal here, but it's not fully guaranteed. But I got this 1 year fully guaranteed that gives me a raise, and I'm going to take that." So I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to.
I think the 1-year deal speaks to some people in the Vikings front office, probably the newer people being like, "Hey, we should try to trade this guy because it's not working.
Mhm.
We got a new coach in here, new stuff. Let's just see if we can get our own people." And people above them or who've been there before are like, "Nah, you gotta keep him." So they're like, "Okay," and then they're like, "Is a 1-year deal, 1-year extension okay?" And then they're like, "I guess so. We'll see." So yeah, it's be interesting to see. I think a lot of former Vikings have said that they want to retire as a Viking. I think Everson Griffin said that. I feel like maybe Jared Allen said that. It usually happens after guys sign extensions, and it makes sense because Adam Thielen also said that he wants to retire a Viking, which he's from Minnesota, so of course he does. Um, but
Whoa, wait,
this
he's from Minnesota. You sure?
he spent his time in Florida though this offseason. He wasn't in Minnesota, so
Ooh,
yeah,
the heel
part-time
turn
resident.
begins.
And I think his football camp's in North Dakota. Uh,
Whoa.
yeah,
Whoa. Hey now.
so
Next
so
thing you know, he's going to be going to Wisconsin.
whoa. Um, yeah, so we'll see the retiring as a Viking. I think yeah, if he wins the Super Bowl, sure, whatever. But like all this stuff like of wanting to stay with the Vikings and it's good to be with the team, like none of it matters if you don't win. So if they don't win, who cares if you want to retire as a Viking? Like Adrian Peterson wanted to retire as a Viking and they weren't winning with him. So they kicked him to the curb. So
Mhm.
this is fine that he says this, but now is the time to go out on the field and prove it. And if they can, then that's great. But right now, we don't have any proof that that's going to happen. But we will see if that is the case. You have anything else to say on this subject of Kirk Cousins' first words since week 18 actually?
Yeah, since the last press conference. He
That
didn't have one for his extension. He didn't have one when O'Connell was hired. He wasn't even at the press conference. That was like, I don't know. Like it's so weird to me because it's like every other quarterback you hear about their power moves, like Tom Brady. Everybody's speculating that he had something to do with Bruce Arians getting out of Tampa Bay. I don't think the Packers consulted Aaron Rodgers, but I wouldn't want to call him either. Yeah, it's just an odd situation. I hope Kirk succeeds, but it's just
yeah.
he's an interesting fellow.
Yeah, it's weird because you see the guys like Derek Carr who just got an extension and he had like a big press conference and everything, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Yeah.
Maybe Kirk didn't want it. Okay, maybe that's why he didn't want all the
That's
hoopla
possible
and
too.
everything.
Yes.
So, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers had one when he got his extension, but he just doesn't give a crap about Green Bay. So he doesn't really care if he gets more money from them or not. He's not about to thank anybody because he probably doesn't really like anybody in that building. So
He probably went on McAfee.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Kirk, that's where Kirk Cousins went. He went on Pat
He
McAfee before he
did.
talked to
He.
anybody in the Minnesota media.
I wonder
Pat
if.
McAfee, he went on his number one super fans YouTube channel or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Joe
before
Spinoza.
he said anything to local media that have covered him throughout his entire career. Yeah. All right, cool, cool, Kirk. All right, moving on to the coach that was fired uh, before Kirk got his extension. Is Mike Zimmer, and I'm sure people are tired of hearing about Mike Zimmer, but some things keep coming back and relating to his departure and kind of painting him in this like negative light, which things went pretty badly at the end. So it's fair to say
Mhm.
that at the end, but we can't ignore what the other things they did too. So throughout the offseason, much of the things that the Vikings players and owners and new coaches have said, and in addition to like the lack of roster changes that the team has made this offseason, they've all been geared towards one thing, and that thing is, Mike Zimmer was the problem, and he was essentially holding this team back from greatness during the last few seasons. And this continued earlier this week with guys like Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, Brian O'Neill. They all talked about the new coaching staff placing an emphasis on building meaningful relationships. Dalvin Cook called Kevin O'Connell cool and smooth and someone who can relate to the players. Okay, so Mike Zimmer's time with the Vikings rightfully came to an end. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. But it's now been 4 months since his departure, and we haven't really heard anything from any of the current players that were around when Zimmer was around, on the decision to fire Zimmer. Zimmer did a lot of good for a bunch of these players on the roster. Why has no one even spent a few seconds to just, talk about maybe how he helped them or thanked him for the time that they were together? Did things just end so poorly that guys are just like forgetting about all the stuff that he, helped them in the early portions of his tenure with the Vikings? Like, why is everything just being placed on Zimmer's shoulders as he was the reason why the Vikings were so unsuccessful recently?
I feel like that's been the motto of this offseason for the
Mhm.
Vikings. Like it's not my fault, it's Mike Zimmer's fault. And I think you have to worry about the locker room in that case because I think a lot of the players went up there like Patrick Peterson was like, Ed Donatel, yeah, he knows about my family and he knows about my kids and he knows about everything. And then Kevin O'Connell, he's great and everything. Okay, well, Patrick Peterson claimed that he came to Minnesota because of Mike Zimmer,
Yep.
because he wanted to get coached up by Mike Zimmer. And 1 year later, it's like, no, that dude is trash. Like, you don't believe it. And I think last year was terrible behind the
Mhm,
scenes. I
mhm.
I, I wanted Zimmer out as badly as everybody, but I think the way that people are talking about him, it's just kind of like people forgot. And I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on Kevin O'Connell to come in here because now you have the exact same team back. You have Kirk Cousins back. You have Adam Thielen back. You have Harrison Smith back. You have Daniil Hunter back. You've added a couple of new guys, Zadarius Smith. We've talked about all of these things a lot over the offseason, but you're doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I mean, people will choose to forget the first 4 years of the Zimmer tenure without Kirk Cousins was pretty successful. So, I mean, I think that culture was so toxic at the end. Yeah, people were excited to get him out of there. But I mean, after maybe like 5 or 10 years down the road, I mean, if Kevin O'Connell's successful, maybe not, but I think he's a Ring of Honor coach for the Vikings. I think that Zimmer
Yeah.
was that good. It just I think his ways of handling things just got a little antiquated. And I think that's why the Vikings kind of look at that and go, okay, let's get a new mind in here. Let's get a younger guy. Let's get an offensive guy and let's kind of adapt to modern football, because I don't think Mike Zimmer really did a good job of doing that, not only in scheme, but in terms of the new style of player.
Do you think? Well, I keep going back. I just wrote about this yesterday about how like, and I kind of got to the point where like, can we blame Mike Zimmer like for the way like that he felt or acted towards the end of his tenure because of the way that it kind of felt like he was maybe undermined by some of the decisions that Spielman made or other people made, like that
Mm-hmm.
really didn't help the team or kind of fit with how Zimmer wanted to run things. Because you talk about the Kirk Cousins thing, he like said before that even happened, like we cannot spend a lot of money on a quarterback; it will blow up in our face, and I will get fired, and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at stuff like you know cutting Linval Joseph and cutting Xavier Rhodes. Those guys had large cap hits, and you can make a case for those. But then you see moves where like they give Kyle Rudolph an extension. He gets like $9 million a year, which I can't imagine. Mike Zimmer's like, yes, we need to do this. We need to give this
Give
tight
me
end.
Kyle Rudolph
Yeah,
now.
he's gonna
Yeah.
be the key to our success. No.
But
So like,
Mike, we just drafted a tight end. No, no,
yeah,
do
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
So like, I can understand, I can see his viewpoint where, like, towards the end, like, we talk about how Zimmer's defense kind of fell apart, and I can see where he's probably just like, "You know what? Like, what does it matter anymore? Like, I'm not getting the help I need from, the front office. Like, what does it matter even if our defense is good?" And you shouldn't be like that, but that's just probably, how he felt towards the end. Like, he knew he saw what was happening. He saw his time was probably coming to an end, and he was like, just like, if people aren't gonna help me, why do I wanna stay up until 3 in the morning every day and look at film for, these people that don't wanna help me? After let's see, they won 2 division titles, they had 2 playoff appearances, they went to the NFC Championship in his first 4 years with what, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray. He helped like, the reason that defense was so good, people talk about how many good players he had, but, like, with those players, would they have reached their potential without Zimmer? Like, does Xavier Rhodes become Xavier Rhodes without Mike Zimmer? Does Anthony Barr, does he have the, good seasons that he has without Mike Zimmer? Does Harrison Smith blossom into an all-pro safety without Mike Zimmer? Just like, I don't think people realize how much of an impact he had. We just look at the last 2 years and we just think like, "Oh, he was a terrible coach, like, everything was toxic, he didn't care about the players," and I just think it was a mixture of a lot of things. It was his time to go, but just this whole yeah, like you said, like, this whole narrative of like, "Well, Zimmer's gone, everything's good now, we're back on track, we're championship contenders." He was what was holding our team back when at times, I think he might have been part of the reason why this team even won as many games as they did in the last couple of years. So, I just don't like the way that this guy was with the franchise for almost a decade, and it's like they're acting like he was like Mike Tice or Leslie Frazier. Like I don't even think Leslie Frazier got even this much. Like, oh, he's gone now, so things are better. But I don't know, and it also feels like the way people are reacting. Some people are like, you look at Urban Meyer and how much of a disaster that was in Jacksonville, and, some people are kind of acting like the end of Zimmer's tenure was just as toxic, the way some people react, when it probably wasn't even close, 'cause of some of the things that come out about Urban Meyer, but I don't know. I like Zimmer as a coach, and it's tough to see him kinda be made the scapegoat, I guess. You have any more thoughts on this?
Well, the difference in age between Urban Meyer and that college chick that was grinding at him at the bar and Mike Zimmer and his girlfriend is pretty spot on. So I mean,
Yeah.
if we're talking about comparisons,
At least she's his
we
girlfriend,
might
though.
want to start there. Yeah,
Urban
exactly.
Meyer's
Yeah,
married.
that's true. Yeah, he's a married man, just chilling at the bar like a high school coach. Freaking,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think high school coaches, well, they go to the bar, but I don't think they go to
No.
college bars looking for chicks like Urban did. Um, what worries me about this team is that I feel like the players are getting too much control here. And I think that was kind of my worry when the Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell, was that it was a Kirk Cousins hire. And they could say otherwise, that they think otherwise. And Kirk can
Not
be like,
according to
I
him.
didn't. Yeah, Kirk goes, oh, yeah, I didn't know.
I don't even know who he is.
Yeah, it's substituted. Hello. Yeah, whatever. It just, I don't know. I mean, you got Patrick Peterson saying what he's saying. And then he's also just talking about the rest of the team like, oh, we're loaded, everything else. Like a lot of this roster is the same roster that has been over 500 for 800 days or whatever it is. A lot of this roster also was historically bad at allowing points before the half, which we'll talk about a little bit
Yeah.
later. Like it seems like the only player that I trust on this team right now is Justin Jefferson, because I think he's the only level-headed guy that's there. Like here's one more thing that I'll kind of throw out there when it comes to this roster. Like I always go back to the Minnesota Wild because they had a toxic culture. They got rid of the coach first, and then they looked around and they looked at the players and went, some of these guys got to go. And I think a lot of the players like Eric Stahl wanted to retire there. Devin Dubnyk wanted to retire there. I'm sure Zach Parise and Ryan Suter wanted to retire. And Bill Guerin was just like, no, we're not having this, and got rid of all of them. And I think like Kwesi probably wanted to go down and take a flamethrower to the roster, but ownership told him no, or he just didn't get the offers that would have been smart. Because if you trade Adam Thielen for 6th round pick, and
Yeah.
I know I'm picking on Adam Thielen, but I'm just using him as an example, he's going to get torched. So it's just like I think the players kind of had too much say in this, and if it works, great. I mean, there is a scenario where all of this works because Kevin O'Connell, I think, has the mind to make this work. But if it doesn't work, the hammer's got to fall somewhere, and I wouldn't even put it on Kevin O'Connell. I would put it on the players on the field at this point because we would have seen 3 years of underachieving football.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. I think the Vikings have a bunch of talented players, but
Mhm.
I think they don't have a very talented team.
Yeah.
Um,
And to
because
their credit, I just want to mix this
yeah,
in very
yeah,
quickly. Harrison Smith mentioned something in his press conference where he goes, hey, the people on the back end of the roster, they're important too. Like
oh
I
yeah,
think Mike Zimmer kind of
yeah,
dismissed
yeah,
especially the 2021 rookie class, and just like, you're not important. Like I think Kevin O'Connell wants that inclusion, and you saw all of them at the Timberwolves game. So I think they're working toward that.
yeah. And you can go to games and stuff and whatever and team bonding and all that stuff. And I think the Vikings did that before. That's not this isn't like a miraculous thing that they've been doing. Um, but
Team field
you gotta
trips. Next week they're going to the
you gotta
zoo.
win games. The way that the Vikings are setting this up is those are their expectations. Like they have to win, or else guys are going to get cut next year. Guys are going to be gone, and I think you can have a bunch of talented players, but if they all don't mix, like this is a roster like. A football roster is 52 guys. This isn't a basketball team where like one guy can shine and carry the whole team. You got to have a lot of guys mix and mix well together. And if they don't, then you got to figure out a different way. And the last 4 years, this core of guys hasn't mixed well. But they're going to give it one more shot. They think, if they get a new, scientist in there to mix them all together, then, maybe he'll be able to come out with some different results. And hopefully he does. But, a lot of people uh get maybe I think they call us negative when we're not as optimistic about the same roster coming back that has missed the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years and really just getting a new coach And their biggest free agent addition was someone who played 2 games last year and is probably on the back end of his career. Um, I think we have good reason, but, we can also be optimistic, like, Kevin O'Connell's coming from the Rams, he just won the Super Bowl. They've got Justin Jefferson. It's not like Kirk Cousins can't get him the ball. It really just comes down to what they're able to do on the field and how much this defense can improve and things like that. But the expectations are pretty large for a rookie head coach, and he's got a lot on his table in his very first year as a head coach. He seems like he's ready, but once again, it will come down to wins. All right, you mentioned the
Yeah.
Vikings historically, historically bad end of game defense last year. We knew it was bad. We watched it. We didn't really need statistics to tell us that they were terrible at the end of each half because we pretty much knew it. But then Warren Sharp of NBC Sports and The Ringer and of his own website, Sharp Analysis, he recently shared a disturbing statistic about the Vikings and their late game struggles last season. Here's what he posted the other day. The Vikings have allowed touchdowns on 32.4% of opponent drives in the final 4 minutes just before halftime or the end of the game. So that was the worst in the NFL last season. The NFL average was 12%. So do the math. The Vikings had 20% more. 31, which is second to last, had allowed 20.6%, which is 12% less than what the Vikings did. So not only did they rank last in the NFL last season, but they ranked dead last of 686 teams since 2000. They were really bad at the end of games last year. This also wasn't mentioned though by Sharp. The Vikings offense only scored a touchdown on 5% of their drives in the final 4 minutes before halftime or the end of the game, which was the third worst in the NFL season. All right. So, yes, the defense was terrible last season in late game situations. They're actually pretty good, like third downs and red zone and stuff like that, not in the final minutes. So no one is arguing that they were bad at the end of games. But why does it seem like the offense has escaped criticism this season? They were 14th in scoring last season. They weren't like the greatest show on turf. Some are acting like they're like a top 5 unit. They were 14th. So it's just why is the offense escaping any sort of blame for the lack of late game success that the Vikings had last year?
Because I think there were a couple times where the offense did come through. I think
Yeah.
Kirk led the big drive against Detroit. He led the big drive against Carolina that won the game. He might have had one more. It's kind of escaping me right now. But I mean, there were times where Kirk Cousins, especially early in the season, put the big boy pants on and said, "We're not losing this game."
The
And I
Packers.
think that's what yes, the Packers. We want more of that. We want more Killer Kirk out on the field. The problem
He
is,
doesn't.
that's just not in his ethos. And I don't want to turn this into a this is all Kirk's fault discussion, because I think the other part of that is the offensive scheme and the play
Yeah.
calling.
Yeah.
Teams know where to attack the Vikings, especially in that situation. And when you have a 2-minute drive, you're going, okay, where can we hurt this team? We're going to rush in the middle of the offensive line because Garrett Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland, and your right guard du jour can't handle it. And we're also going to drop back two safeties because
Yep.
Kirk melts down and goes, no, they're not open. I'm going to check down to CJ Ham. Like, I think that's somewhere that Kevin O'Connell is going to succeed, is finding a way to exploit those areas, find a way to get Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen open and produce more yards at the end. I think that's going to be a big win for the Vikings this year compared to last.
Yeah, I think that they did come back a lot late in late situations last year on the offensive side of the ball, but and I also think some of the drives that the defense gave up was also a direct result of after the offense came on the field and went 3 and out because last year they led the league in 3 and outs. So, you know, you can blame the defense for giving up points, but when they get a 30-second break between drives, it's they're gonna be gassed, and I feel like this was the case a lot of times last year. They did have comebacks. You mentioned the Lions and the Packers, which almost weren't comebacks because let's say Greg Joseph misses that kick against the Lions, they lose. Let's say that interception against the Packers counts, the Vikings lose to the Packers. So they could have been what a 6-win team easily last year as much as they could have been maybe a 9 or 10-win team last year as well. That brings another question to mind. Do you think they were closer to the playoffs last year, or were they closer to, let's say, a team more like the Bears?
So I think they were better than the Eagles. I think the Eagles just
Oh,
had
yeah?
a really good schedule down the stretch. So I think that's what they got
Yeah, they're in
in
the NFC
as
East.
opposed to the Vikings. Yeah. Yeah. So they played Commanders, Giants, all those bottom feeder teams. And like the
Giants,
Vikings were
yeah.
going up against the Rams, the
Mhm,
Packers,
mhm,
even the Bears were,
mhm,
I mean, they weren't good, but they gave the Vikings a run for their money
mhm.
uh in Chicago. Like I think that the Vikings should have been a playoff team last year. And I think
Yeah,
that's what ownership sees is that, hey, this team, if they score a touchdown here, if they get a stop there, if they have a little better culture in the locker room, like this team can win games. It's a matter of can this team win multiple games in January as opposed to, well, we could win an extra game against the Browns. That was another last minute drive that collapsed, right? Because they should have won that game too. It's just such a weird team to figure out. And
Cowboys
I
too?
mean, yeah, yeah, Cooper bleeping Rush. Yeah, like,
Mhm,
man, we're not going to know about this team until they hit the field. And I think that's kind of exciting when you think about it, that
mhm.
once they start playing games, we're going to see if it was Mike Zimmer's fault. We're going to see what Kevin O'Connell has in store and how he can improve this team and everything. So if you want to be positive about things, I think the improvements that O'Connell can make can move this needle at least enough to get to the playoffs. Can it
Yeah.
win a Super Bowl? I don't know, but yeah, I I'd bet on the Vikings as a playoff team next year.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about is, just the draft coming up. I just wanna see what they do. Like,
Hmm.
we're used to Rick Spielman trading back and getting 19 picks all in the 7th round. I just wanna see what approach they take, what are they looking to the future? Are they looking to, get some immediate help? Will they trade back into the 1st round? I'm very curious, to what they're gonna do. My feeling is they're probably gonna trade back in the 1st round. I think there's been some rumblings already that the Saints and the Steelers are interested in maybe making a deal with the Vikings about that number 12 pick. Um, and if the Vikings feel like they can still get their guy in the 1st round, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. Um, and they could probably get that 4th rounder back that they gave up for Chris Herndon last year.
So here's
What do you
my
got?
question for you.
Yeah,
Somebody last week mentioned that the Steelers, if they offer their 2023 first, or even the Saints offering their 2023 first, would you take it in that case if they offer you a 2023 first to trade back in the first round, or
to go completely out of the 1st round,
not completely out, just swap picks? So
swap
if like
picks,
the
and
Steelers are
then get
looking at, Malik Willis or whatever, and they
yeah,
say, okay, well, hey, we'll give you our first round pick next year, and you can pick at 20 or whatever it is.
yeah, immediately. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
that's a
agree.
no-brainer because we already know that the quarterback class for next year is supposed to be better, and if you have multiple first-round picks, that gives you a better chance of trading up if you need to do so. So, yes, immediately. Yes, I don't even care if they give them more picks than that. If it's just this year's first and next year's first, I'm completely fine with that trade. Yeah, no, of course. Um One last question, because it appears that this player is back in the trade rumors market. Kyler Murray. Would you want Kyler Murray for the next 2 seasons as a Vikings quarterback, or would you want Kirk Cousins?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Kirk is good. Like this isn't dumping on Kirk. Like you could
Yeah.
have a lot worse options. Like I agree with the Kirk stands who say that, but
Mhm,
Kyler Murray is a transcendent player. And I mean, I know Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah does not believe in transcendent players because he's told us so.
mhm.
But I mean, you get a guy that's a dual threat like that, that can play the quarterback position at a different level than Kirk can, but has the same kind of, late season failures that Kirk does. I mean, if you look at the two side by side, and if we were building a franchise, obviously I take Kyler because he's younger. But I mean, from a season to season standpoint, give me the guy that can do multiple things. Like if he's having a tough time throwing the ball, let him run. If he's, not getting anything on the ground, let him throw. I mean, we saw it last year. That game against Arizona, he put up, what was it, 400 yards?
400. Yep.
Yeah, on the
And
nose.
that was
Like,
that was without
yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins had like 50 yards receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he's good. I also cover the Cardinals, so I'm very familiar with Kyler Murray and his skill set. He got hurt at the end of last year, and that kind of seemed to make him a little more skittish when it came to running the ball. And they had some other problems as well. DeAndre Hopkins was out, and that kind of played a big factor. Imagine the Vikings losing Justin Jefferson. How drastically that would change their offense. That's pretty much what happened to the Cardinals last year. It's just an interesting situation because it's like, why would the Cardinals not do everything that they can to re-sign him? No matter what. Like, he is their franchise quarterback. What are you doing? Like
It's got to
I
be
don't.
something behind the scenes too. Like that
And
could be
they
a thing.
Yeah, well, they
But
just
they floated it
extended.
out.
Yeah, they just extended their head coach and their GM for another 5 years. So maybe that's part of, like, ownership being like, we're gonna give you guys some time. If you need to move on from Kyler, then you have this time to find a new quarterback and develop them. But it's just weird because I don't think a lot of people are like, Kyler's terrible. Like, because he's
No,
what, 24. He's been in the league for 3 years. Like, I don't know. I would take him in a heartbeat over Kirk Cousins. Just youth and his ability to just stretch the pocket and everything with his legs. And yeah, I would do that in a second. All right, so that's all I got for you today, Chris. Uh, Everyone watching, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel. Make sure to go to the description for a link to enter a contest to win a free Justin Jefferson jersey. So go check that out. It is in the description below. Thanks again for joining today. Go follow the Viking Age on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out all of Chris's writing on the Viking Age, on Zone Coverage, and Bring Me the News, which is part of Sports Illustrated now, I believe. I think I saw that.
yeah, we're part of Fan Nation now at the Bring Me the
Yeah,
Sports website. So
I saw
check
that.
it out. It's got a new look. Same stuff we got going on. So
There
if
you
you
go. Yeah,
like my stuff, go over and check it out.
go check that out. All right, we will talk to you guys next Monday. So until then, we will talk to you later.
Well,